Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we are being joined by Halelly Azulay, author of Strength to Strength, How Working from Your Strengths Can Help You Lead a More Fulfilling Life. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm glad to be here.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you for trying.
Excellent. Yeah, I am fairly infamous for butchering names on the show, so I do my very best. So I do want to welcome you to the show. I'm really glad that you're here today. And are you ready to get started with our 5 questions?
Super excited.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I think that you should write the book, but you should also start looking for publishing options before it's done. I know that some people write the whole book and then start to shop it around, but I think that ends up creating an opportunity for procrastination, and then it adds to the list of written books that have never been published that is out there in the universe.
Absolutely. What do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Oh my gosh, I think all of it is so hard, and it's getting so much more confusing because there are so many options. The good part of having options is it's confusing, and it keeps changing too. But I think the hardest part about getting published is if you want to get published by a publishing house, it's getting them to agree to publish you and then getting them to actually promote your book, which they do less and less nowadays.
Yeah, and I wanted to take a little deeper dive into this question too, because I know before the show we were talking that your first book, you did it through a publisher, but your second book, you went through the indie route. So could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, certainly. And so my first book, I had a publishing house publish it because I decided that I wanted to get my training wheels on and have somebody kind of run alongside me as I'm doing it for the first time. And the second time I had a little bit better idea of what I'm doing, but I also understood more about the cons of going with a publishing house, some of the things that are not as great. And I wanted speed to publish, which you do not get going through a publisher. So on my second book, on Strength to Strength, which you read the title of, I was able to pretty quickly put it together, do editing. I hired my own graphic designer and my own editor, and was able to just push print pretty much through a service that provides publishing on demand for smaller books. They're called Mini Book.
And that's the name of the company, correct?
Yeah, Mini Book. It's spelled MINIBUK, and the U has an umlaut on it.
Well, tell us a little more about that company, because I know when we talked prior to the show, it's actually one that I'm not too familiar with. So tell us a little more about that and how they can help our authors.
Okay. Well, I don't get a commission from them, although I'm one of their ambassadors. So if you do go to them, do mention my name. But it's minibook.com, and they have what they do is they publish books in a variety of thicknesses, but that are sized pretty small, kind of like I'm not good at remembering numbers, but it's kind of like a big index card in terms of the surface area, maybe like a photo size. And what I loved about that, first of all, it allows you to have a book without writing something that's massive. A lot of times that's a big barrier to entry. I've mentored so many would-be authors and talked to so many people who say they plan to publish a book, but it's a daunting thing to do. And so it allows you to move forward with publishing a book without having 10,000 pages. You can have a book that's 16 pages. You can have a book that's 32 pages. You can have a book that's 120 pages. And so for me, for example, this was it was something that was 3 blog posts that I had. It was a series of blog posts about strengths that I then put together and enriched and enhanced and edited into something that flows more together as a book. It allowed me to take content I already had and create it in something that I can give to people physically. And the reason I wanted to have that small book is that, first of all, many people are too busy to read full books. And so this is not as daunting to read. It seems and looks doable. It also allowed me having this kind of a way to publish allowed me to put in marketing content that I wanted about my website, my services, my picture, I didn't have any kind of gatekeepers telling me, no, you can't have that in the book. So it allowed me to use it for marketing, which was the main purpose that I wanted it for as my business, for my business. And it also is it's the kind of thing that if you send somebody a white paper, which may be equal in volume and value, they kind of forget about it. But a physical book, they're going to keep it in their desk, on their desk, in their desk. They're more likely to handle it more. They're more likely to show it to someone else. They're more likely to have someone see it and ask about it. So it's something that's cheap enough because it's small enough that I could use it to give as marketing collateral. I could give it for free to people because it doesn't cost me that much to produce it. And it creates a very big impression.
Well, and this is going to transition perfectly into our next question, and that is in regards to marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
So for my first book, through the publisher, I wanted to leverage their audience. They have a really big audience. I published through the publishing house of my professional association, ATD. And it's the largest professional association for people in the talent development industry. And they have like 100,000 people on their email list or whatever. So for them to market my book, I wrote a lot of blog posts that related content about the book. I did webinars about the book. I spoke about the book to chapters and local associations. And we even created a day-and-a-half workshop, an in-depth training workshop on the book content that we marketed to their audience, of course, to anybody else who was interested. So it allowed me to really get a lot of eyeballs interested in this content and for it to be seen as very credible, highly credible, because it's coming from the professional association for this topic. It was employee development on a shoestring. For my second book, the Strength book, I used a different strategy in that I added it to my website. I added it to all of my existing marketing content. I spoke about it when I spoke with clients and did speaking engagements for various audiences. So it allowed me to create visibility and to get more people aware of the existence of the book, which allowed me to build much greater visibility and credibility. And that was the main reason I wanted to. But one other thing that I did with this book, because as I mentioned, it wasn't that costly to produce for me, is to be able to give it away as gifts. So for example, if I'm doing a speaking engagement or a workshop and I want to just give something unexpectedly to someone to create a little bit of buzz, it's a cute and attractive thing to give that other people are looking at and are become curious about. And that person is very thankful that they received a book for free. So it creates kind of a generous atmosphere and interest in the book as a result.
Well, one thing I'd like to touch on a little bit more is you mentioned you were doing webinars about your book. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that worked?
Yeah, sure. Did lots of webinars about the books. And, there are a lot of organizations that want to have regular webinars for their audience and are just dying for content, so a lot of professional associations and nonprofits and various other organizations. So this is a great opportunity for you to give them valuable content for free. I did use most of the webinars I did were I was not paid for, but it allows you to talk about content and mention that, I go into greater detail about this in my book, and they have the name of your book, and they want to mention it because it helps them build credibility for their content to their audience. So it's a soft sell. I don't really do a pitch that's really overt. Most of these organizations don't welcome that at all, but it allows people to become exposed to the book and then have an opportunity to then go and get it if they're intrigued by the content. A webinar is usually maybe 60 minutes, 45 minutes. Obviously, you're not going to talk about everything that's in the book. So it creates curiosity and intrigue, and people want more. And obviously, your book is the best way for them to get more.
And you mentioned it was nonprofits. What other companies were you working with for them to give you the opportunity to give these webinars for?
So, for example, one of my clients is a financial services company that wants to develop their leaders. And I was able to create a relationship with the person who's in charge of their training and leadership development function. And that person came to one of my free workshops. This, by the way, is the way that the strategy can work. He came to one of my free workshops that was at one of the conferences that he attended and that I spoke at, and was loved the idea, bought the book, became a big proponent of the book in his organization, and then contacted me and said, we're doing this big leadership development monthly webinar program. Would you be a speaker for one of them? And at that point, that's for pay. So I earned a speaking fee to sit in my yoga pants and talk about my book to this organization. 400 different leaders from around the country attended, and lots more people became exposed to the ideas in my book. So it's just value all around.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points with that, because I think there's a lot of benefits with webinars and working with different associations and companies, and you don't even have to make it about any type of sales pitch at the end. If they like your content, they're going to reach out to you regardless. And if you have a minimal call to action where you're talking about, hey, you can check out more information about my book, or to get more information, we've got some resources on our website, it's a soft sell, and it just helps build such a stronger connection with those attendees versus just having to pitch your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give you another quick story. Just recently, I did a podcast interview similar to this one. It was about the Strength to Strength book, and they did marketing for it and gave a link to my book, which is only sold on my website, by the way, because I made the decision when I went with MiniBook. They give you an option to have an ISBN number on it or not. You pay, I don't remember, it's like $150 or something to set that up.
Yeah.
And when you have an ISBN number, you can set it up for sale on Amazon. And when you don't, you can't. And I knew at the time that I wasn't trying to sell the book for money from the book. I was using it as marketing collateral, and I didn't opt to put in the ISBN number. So the book is only sold through my website. Long story short, a person did, as a result of that podcast, I'm pretty sure, and me marketing it to my LinkedIn followers that I'm going to be on this podcast, they went to the podcast, listened to it, learned about the book, bought the book from my website. Now, since I'm doing the fulfillment, I see who's buying. So I saw the address, and it was like right down the street from where I used to live. So I wrote a follow-up email to this person and said, hey, thanks for buying my book. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought. And by the way, I have all this other great content. I'd love to add you to my newsletter if you would like. And she said, oh, I'm already on your newsletter, and I'm already on your LinkedIn. I met you at when you spoke for the first book. It was like several years ago. I did not remember meeting this lady at all. But as a result of following up with her, she said, oh, by the way, actually, now that I think about it, we're doing a leadership development series for this group of emerging leaders at our organization. And I've seen you present, and I know you're really dynamic and engaging. Maybe you can come in and be one of our speakers. And I'm doing that next week.
Funny how it works, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that is such a great example. And you're right, ISBNs, it can go either way. One thing I do in my publishing company, because you're right, I mean, it can be $150 minimum just for one ISBN. So what we did is, obviously, because we have a lot of people we work with, we buy them in bulk, because it's crazy. One ISBN can cost you $150, although 10 ISBNs will cost you on average about $30 each, but you always have to do those bulk orders. And it's just so funny. One ISBN costed $150. I mean, I think personally that's ridiculous. I don't know about you, but for one ISBN, that's just ridiculous.
It's a lot of money, although I will tell you that I made that choice, and if I were to go that route again, which I'm seriously considering, I think that this time around I will get it, because I still think that it is really important to have the book on Amazon and to be able to do it and to have that option. I think that it can generate much more sales, and also doing the fulfillment myself is, I mean, that's a pain in the neck. So being able to have the book just be shipped from Amazon, I think that overall it'll probably increase sales and make it easier to manage. So I kind of regret that decision.
So with this fulfillment, were you actually literally buying the books in bulk and then having them, you're shipping them out yourselves, or were you using some sort of
Yes.
drop shipping?
No, like going to the post office and
Oh, wow.
sending it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have 13 books. I could not do that.
No, no,
That'd be way
it's
too
crazy.
many.
Yeah, I mean, so you have to, it's like everything else. You have to think about what is my goal?
Yeah,
What am I trying to accomplish? And what are the costs? What are the benefits? And then make a decision. I don't think there's a one size fits all.
yeah.
In this case, for this book, it seemed like the right thing to do. Um, but you have to just consider what would you like to accomplish and how big do you want it to go?
Agreed. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
As a learner, a lifelong learner, having a question like that is a very painful thing to answer. Choosing just one is just insane. But overall, I would say my very favorite book, because of the importance of the message and the impact it's made on my life, is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And I read it many years ago, but I have reread it and thought about it for a lot longer than just the time that I read it. And that's why I chose it. And it has many important lessons in it. But I think the number one lesson in this book is to believe in yourself even when no one else does, and never to give up on your integrity and your dreams and goals.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is supposedly by Michelangelo. You know, those quotes on the internet, you never know who said what. But it goes something like this: the greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. I like this quote. It's similar to the reason I like the book that I mentioned, because I think that many people sell themselves short. I think that many people play it small. And one of my mission is to help as many people as possible optimize their strengths and their talents and bring the most value into the world. And I don't like it when I see people playing small. So there isn't really a very big risk in playing big. Even if you don't reach whatever your target is, you're still going to go much farther than if you play it small.
Well, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
So my website is a really great place to find me, to see the work that I do. Also, my podcast, The Talent Grow Show, is on my website as well as my blog. And the website is talentgrow.com.
Well, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you so much, Paul, and the same to you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.